treat yourself as if you've already made it. Ask yourself those questions. Who do you want to be? So I did an interview with myself on writing, what my inspirations were, and I answered myself. Don't be afraid to share your work, because it takes a village to get a film done. And that really does spur thought, and it really does help viewpoints and to think outside the box. Write what you feel, write your story, get it out. Don't worry about budgets, don't worry about financing, don't worry about if you're going to sell it. But at some point, you can actually make your box. You know what you're writing, and you can write to scale, and you do know what the budget's going to be, but you learn those things over time.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the Origins Club. I'm Alan Bolden, and I'd like to thank you for joining us. Today, we have Tonia Kempler. She's with Vellum Entertainment. She has a wide range of experiences and backgrounds through music, entertainment, and now with Vellum Entertainment through feature films and comic books. Hi, Tonia. Nice to meet you.
Hi. Thank you for having me on here.
No problem. Thank you. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone of what the Origins Club is. We basically want to have on some of the most creative people of our time. We feel like if you understand where people are coming from and their origin stories, everyone has one, that you get to connect to some of the most creative minds that are here today. And when doing that, it allows for you to be inspired and go forward. So we're really glad to have Tonia today because, man, has she got some great stories and great experiences. So we're just honored to have you, Tonia. And before we get started, is there anything that you would like to say to the audience just in general about being creative?
Yeah, thanks. I would say everybody has a creative bone, and it's just not being afraid. Don't be embarrassed. Just go for it. And that's, I guess, my biggest advice, because fear would have stopped me from doing many things.
Okay, well, great. Let's get into this. I think one of the things that I would really love to do is start at the beginning. You and I have talked before, and I was just in awe of a lot of the things about how you started. So let's just start there. Can you tell me, from the beginning, how you got into entertainment and the industry and, just the many moves and where you're at now?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm honored to be here. And that means a lot. I kind of got lucky. I left home at 15 and had a little brother and my mom to take care of. And, just found a way to navigate staying in high school and working full time. So my childhood just, vanished. And I guess I was 17 and I met Peter Cowlin, concert promoter in Atlanta. I was dating a drummer at the time and was, even at that age, booking his band all over the city. And that band went on to be Stuck Mojo later on. And a lot of people probably know of them. So his father said, I heard about this job interview at a concert promoter. And I was like, the concert promoter hired me. He said, I don't know, just go check. Walked in and was hired on the spot. So that sort of set my career in motion. Peter is now Live Nation. At the time, it was Peter Conlon and Alex Cooley. Alex has since passed away, but he to the Electric Ballroom. He was a pretty big concert promoter. His day when Woodstock was happening, he was doing shows in Atlanta. And that's how I met Jimmy Carter, because Peter at one point had been Carter's press secretary. So I had a pretty interesting start. I had, some pretty great mentors early on. Around, I guess, the time that I was 21, I decided, I'm supposed to go to college. I'm an arts girl.
With the people that you've met, early on, the people you were dating who become all these different things, and then the people that you met, did you ever feel any type of nervousness, or were you just in the moment, you just knew these people, so it wasn't any big deal? How did you deal with meeting some of the people that you met if they were, going on to these successful careers?
I was never really nervous, I guess, because I managed to, get over that pretty early, being on my own. So yeah, I just was a survivor, I guess. So I have no issue throwing myself on the blade, and I'm a people pleaser. And so that comes first. Now, for myself, my fatal flaw is apps. I don't ask for things. I try to do things for other people. So I'm a connector by heart. So my desire to keep my word and do exactly what I say I'm going to do overpowers any fear any day. So even then, so if I said, I'm going to go out and get 5, shows booked, I was going to go out and get 5 shows booked. So I didn't, fear just never came into the equation.
Very interesting. That's really cool because there's a lot of people who they overthink it. They think about the person that they're getting ready to talk to. And for some reason, they either freeze or think people won't want to talk to them.
It is true. And I'll jump ahead to motherhood for a moment because it really does come full circle all through life. Gymnastics. I was in gymnastics when I was younger, and I was doing a floor routine and just froze, fell, and was paralyzed for a while. Really hurt my back. Still have back issues because of it. No, but I have back issues because of it. But it was that moment of fear. And when fear hits, you're in trouble. So when my kids were small, I would take them to do everything, whether it was soccer or, I tried everything or then ballet. It was that moment of fear. I would see them, particularly in gymnastics, they would do their thing and get to one of those blocks that falls and pause. You can't pause. That's when you get hurt. So it was just something that was kind of came to me, I guess, naturally. I had to teach them as they got older to just not pause. So when there's fear, you just can't. That second, even with driving, right? If you pause, something back, you really have to follow through. If that's
it's almost like that.
Anyone, just in those moments.
Yeah, it's almost like that. Don't think. There's sometimes it's like that's all you can do is you just want to think all of it through. But sometimes that's just the worst thing to do. You just have to go for it.
Yeah. So around the age of 21, I decided, I'm a straight A student. I'm supposed to go to college. So I went to liberal arts school and wanted to stay in entertainment. So I started working for Joel Katz, who at the time was, depending on who you ask, a 2nd or 3rd largest entertainment attorney in the country at that time. He represented everybody, the who's who in Nashville, from Warren Morgan to Willie Nelson to George Strait. And Atlanta at that time was having a that's where the hip hop scene, rap scene was really coming into fruition. Babyface, LA, Dallas Austin, Daryl Simmons. It was a hub of creativity. So it was a really good time to be in music. So working with Joel, I got to talk to all of these people. I became friends with people like Frank DeLeo, Michael Jackson. Frank was in Goodfellas and he was in Wayne's World. So I met early on just a lot of incredible people. And one thing, I'm going to sidetrack for a moment. Never underestimate anyone. That's one lesson that I've learned from my career. I'm an assistant to somebody who works in the mailroom to just, you never know who's going to end up where and what position they're going to have and who's going to have your back at the end of the day. So be nice to everyone.
Just on that really quick. I feel like that's something that really gets brushed aside. Did you ever have a case where you weren't? And that's where you learned that lesson?
No. That was always in me. And I just would help so many people that would call. Joel had this running call log and people would call in for him and he didn't have time to talk to everyone. But there were some people who really they really needed help. So just give them that extra push to make sure that day they got their call handled. And some of those people, and they were just people looking for jobs. Some of those people right now are running major studios. So it was just, I was nice to everybody. But the reason I give that tip is as I've gotten older and as I've gone through my career and my career's become more significant over time, there have been people who at times have gotten close to me because something was happening at that moment. And it really wasn't about getting close to me. So it's almost the reverse. It's not that I did that to people, but I've definitely had people do that to me. And I remember. We're still friends. We still talk, but I remember. So
that's so true. That is really true. And I remember I was 12 years old and I would call over to CBS Studios and over to Star Trek when Star Trek The Next Generation was going on. And I'd asked to talk to Michael Okuda, who was like the set design. He was like the brainchild, him and his wife, Denise, who was doing the set design. He was like basically all about the science of it and the way it would actually work and all that. And I would call over this little kid and he would take the time to literally talk to me about Star Trek when he was obviously busy. And I never forgot that. that somebody would take that time out as a, to do that. So, okay, you had just gone through and done all these things. At the time, there were a lot of people who were coming up through, the system in Nashville, and you were right in the middle of all of it. How did it turn out?
Yeah, it was great. I loved working with Joel. I learned a lot. I thought at the time I wanted to be an entertainment attorney. So I met my husband during this time. He was a partner at the law firm, Tonia Kempler. Jeff was representing fellow Cool J, reinvented Harmony, quite a few people. And one of us had to leave, and it wasn't going to be the assistant. It was, partner staying. So I went to work for Richard Johnson, who was at the time a business manager. And our clients were Eric Sermon, Dale Simmons, Tony Rich, who I just talked to today. Tony, he was nominated for 4 Grammys. He won Best New Album for Words. He had the song Nobody Knows. And he's working on a new album. Be out soon. I just had a long talk with him today. I stay in touch with everybody. So we had Dent was there. That's why I ended up working with Dent on Survivor. It was just that L.A. Reid was there. So I handled kind of personal life for everybody. That was when L.A. Reid went to be president of Arista. So it was a really fun time. And I became really close with this girl, Tasha Stafford, in Atlanta. She's still there. She repped Acre, Shakespeare, and Dent. She was a manager. So I decided, you know what? The management side really fits me better. I'm not in numbers at all. So I went to work with Marsha. She had a company called at that time in Night Entertainment. And that was when Survivor, we got a Grammy for Survivor, Scrubs, quite a few during that time. I mean, collectively with all of our clients, we had 100 chart-topping songs.
So you went from basically the inside pitch of not only the personal but business portions of all of these major producers and people who were repping all these other people, and then you went into management yourself. What was the biggest difference between the two once you made the switch?
The difference was I get really close to people. I really see people. Like, regardless of who it is, I really connect in ways, and people open up. So the relationship quickly develops, and that threatens a lot of people. So working with certain people who don't have that, who are just business and they're hardcore, and there's nothing wrong with either style. There's something about that closeness I have with people that creates a bit of an issue. So luckily I figured that out very early on and realized I just need to be an entrepreneur. I need to work for myself, and it would avoid a lot of conflict in that way. Dent and I became very close. I was close with Eric Sermon for a while. Shakespeare and I were really close. So it was just the day. And we noticed that Tasha is a brilliant woman. She is just absolutely one of the most remarkable human beings. She found that a lot of the hip hop guys didn't have, it wasn't necessarily management, but it was almost like a glorified assistant. Somebody who really got in and it wasn't about getting their albums, but it was also about their day to day. If you can't get them up and in the studio and get the bars from that time it was dads from point A to point B, and actually track everything that's going on. And another big one is everybody comes in the studio. Not everybody should be in there when you're writing a song, because later somebody's going to say, wait a minute, I had a part of that song, right? So it was really cool taking their world and organizing it from point A to point B. No one was really doing it. That was unique to us. So, in some ways, we taught our clients to manage themselves. It really wasn't, they needed a lot of organization. And that's the gift we gave them, I think. Because all of my clients, since I left music, I don't think any of them went on to have managers. I think they all pretty much have been handling their own world since then.
So is that would you classify that as gatekeeping or just organization? Do you think it's a mixture of both or no?
I think it was a mixture of both. I think for sure. And different clients, all of us, different people need different things. Right. Some people are, Shakespeare ran his whole world meticulously. I mean, the guy had and still does, such an incredible business mind. All we did was facilitate. So it really depended on who it was.
So now you're in this, now you're in management, right? And you're dealing with all these people. What next?
Well, so my husband at the time got a job offer to go to New York to run Island F Jam, the business legal side of Island F Jam. And I go, what? I've got this career down here. I have this lovely world. I have Tasha, who's my soulmate. She's still my soulmate. But I had to go. So our first year of marriage, I was in Atlanta for 6 months and he's in New York. And I was like, I'm not coming until I have a client there. So my first client was Buck Watt. He was one of Puppy's hitmen. We met for drinks. I hadn't moved up yet. And he was up to re-signing with Puppy or, look for somebody else. And as I was leaving, I get a call from him. We left. I get a call from him and he said, I'm choosing you. And I was like, so I moved up and Buck was my first client. We're still incredibly close. He is such a special gem of human being. Just one of the most wonderful friends I've ever. Yeah. So that was my first client in New York. So I started emerging in New York and clients poured in from there. And it was, it was easy. I had a real gift given to me with the clients that I worked with. They were all just really good people and people wanted to meet them. And I didn't have to do very much pitching at all. The phone would ring for their music. Everybody wants dance music. I just did Survivor. Everybody wants Buck Wild's music.
You had the benefit of working with, a lot of good people, and without naming names or anything like that, like how did you deal with, the not so good people?
I think that we get the energy that we put out because I really didn't have very many bad experiences as the woman in the industry, as a white woman working in the, at the time, the hip hop world. I didn't really experience a lot of negativity. Sure, it was there. Sure, I had, people wanting to steal different clients and whatnot. I only had one situation that was unpleasant, I should say. I won't mention who the client was, but this was an artist, not a producer or songwriter. An artist the creatives are a little bit different. And she was just very lost. She had gone through she was wrong, had gone through a pretty bad experience and her career just disappeared. She's disappeared and it was heartbreaking. I really tried to pull her back in and you can't force people to see their potential. That's the thing. And that's a hard thing as a manager to realize you can see it for them, can't make them see it themselves.
That's a good one. That's a really important point, especially if you're collaborating and even if it's just one person and you're the team that's helping out that person, you can't help people help themselves.
One tip I'll give too, I managed some pretty incredible people and I had very good relationships with other managers. And what you would see during that time in music, a lot of the producers who were giving hits to other people all of a sudden wanted to have their own production companies or their own artists, right? That may not have been as good as the artist that, Whitney's Whitney. You don't have Whitney. But as a manager, you're forced to work with that client too and show the importance. You have to make your clients feel important. Luckily with our clients, we could be honest. It was I can't work with you in that capacity if I can't shoot straight. So we didn't have some of the same issues that other people had. But that's a tip even in filmmaking. Now, you may have a great project. You might not have a great script. You can't get angry if somebody's just not responding the way you think they should respond. You should respond. And that was the same thing at that time in music. And that was the death of a lot of producers' careers. Or even songwriters. They wanted to be the artist. You might not be an artist. It's okay to be the star that you are with what you are. We're not all meant to be president, right? I'm not saying limit yourself at all. I haven't limited myself at all, but there are some things I can't do. I'm not going to be the actress in front of the camera, but I can absolutely, help somebody get there. So that's just one tip I wanted to get before we moved on.
So we're at the part where you're still managing and what starts to happen now?
What starts to happen now is I'm married. I've got 27 clients all over the world. I've got clients in Canada that are winning Juno Awards. I've got clients that I'm bringing over and sponsoring them with visas, and life is great. Napster happens. Napster does to the songwriting world. Clients that would walk in. I had one client who, just to walk in the studio to work with an artist was guaranteed 2 songs at $175,000 a song, just to walk in the studio. That same client now has to walk in on spec. So,
wow.
Yes, because everybody's losing money. And then I got pregnant twice. So when I had my daughter, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I took my company, and I had an incredible assistant, and I just gave it to him. I said, do what you want with it for a while. And I walked away through music to be a mom. And my assistant at the time is just this wonderful Travis Morrison. He went on to work for Tyler Perry, went from Tyler Perry to Netflix, and he's still, doing his thing. But it was a tough time in music for everybody.
Yeah.
I think if I hadn't had my kids, I would have struggled through it. I would have fought through it. But I had these 2 little faces looking at me and thought, I'm going to do this.
Do you have any negative connotations to when those kind of paradigm shifts happen, where you're moving into like this kind of Napster era, or now with AI? Did that teach you anything for kind of like what's coming now?
Yeah, I think so. And I had gone through it a little bit with the concert world too, because, video killed the touring star a lot. Mm-hmm. So that took, a good 10 years or so to cycle. And music took a little bit of time to cycle. Everybody had to find their way through it. And, Jeff stayed in music. He's still in music. He's partners with Jason Blum at Lava Music. They have the Wrongful Conviction podcast. And Jason signed Katy Perry, Kid Rock, Watchbox 28 Collective, so quite a few people. So I still had music in my life. So I wasn't walking away from everything. I still had my network and my friends. I think if I had been walking away and didn't still have that in my life, it might have been a little bit of a depression, but there wasn't. I mean, it was a pretty happy time.
Wow.
It's still a happy time. My kids are 16, 17 now, so they're, every stage of that's been wonderful.
Oh man. So then let's go back to, you are a mom at this time. The industry has been changing. Now what? Because I'm sure you still have like a lot of these creative things flowing through your head. What happens then?
So I started with my kids. My first love came back to me, which was art. And when I left the concert world to go to school at Oglethorpe, which was a fine art school. So art just kind of was in me from the time I was a kid. So through my kids, I started writing children's books, and I started coming up with story. And from there, it just sort of expanded. There was, I call him my muse, this guy, Addison O'Day, who worked with my husband. Addison liked a couple of the stories I had. He said, you got to do something with these. And I said, what am I going to do with these? And he said, well, I need a Bible. Just give me a Bible for that TV idea. And that TV idea was Cloaked with this.
Ooh, wait, all right, perfect. Can you show me that again? Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Yep. That's perfect. So
it was a story about the Book of the Dead, kind of a odd, like Indiana Jones meets, like this Illuminati thing. Is the only cliche thing I would say that I've written, but I do love it tremendously. So Addison loved the story, and he said, I need a script. And I was like, what's a script? I had no idea. So, I wouldn't admit I didn't know what a script was. So that's when I found screenwriting. I was like, okay, I'll take all these bosses and learn it. And I did. So I, wrote the script and figured out what a Bible was and gave him the Bible. And what kind of, I got bit by the bug. I have a bit of, I don't like when people use this term, and it's not accurate, but OCD actually. Do you have OCD? So once it fit, it really fit. Like all the rules were wonderful. Structure, this rule, here's that rule. And once you know the rules, you can break them. But that I really, really do have to know the rules. So they kind of fit like a glove. And from there, 60 scripts later, more.
So you moved into these stories. You've got these things that you're working on that are being illustrated. Did you always want to write? Were you always writing? I mean, back from the management days, were you afraid of moving from something that seemed like it's so different to something else?
I was home. So I was lucky with that access to be able to learn that and to be able to take the online classes and to be able to master it. But it was always in me from the time I was little. I, grew up with, my grandmother was Native American. I grew up on the street with Native American. There's 9 of them. Everybody on this word of the phone. And my extended family, who all grandmother's best friends, was this incredible fellow teacher woman and her sister. So I grew up thinking I had 6 grandmothers. And I thought these 2 women were my grandmothers. They weren't, obviously, but so my childhood was spent, I grew up in Georgia, a lot on the coast. So I was entrenched with these incredible oral storytelling traditions, stories of bullheads and eyes and things that scare the crap out of children. And that's one reason why before I go and I run dark, I can be writing a comedy and it's going to quickly turn into a serial killers.
That's another interesting thing. I mean, there are a lot of eras here. Are you just pulling from all these different experiences, or were all these things you were interested in from the beginning anyway that kind of lead to now? As far as like genres and different types of mediums, is that interesting?
Yeah, it's a good question. I am probably a rare beast other than my partner, Village Birkin, who is, when I met him in 2021, just fire was ignited because his work ethic and creativity and integrity matches my own. We both have grit and we both just instinctually can put things together and we complement each other really well. So I guess it's a great question, but it's a complicated question with multiple parts. I'll try to answer this.
No worries.
And articulate. So when I was working at the concert promoter, and I was really young, 17, around the age of 19, we're doing stadium shows all over the place. And I realized there's all these incredible local bands that need somebody to work with them. And why can't they be openers? So I started Finley Management. That was my first. And it was managing these local bands. Skin Deep is one. Terrence Smith from there went on to be signed by Down Austin. Terrence is doing music for me for one of my horrors now. I wanted a creepy version of Eyes Without a Face, Billy Idol. So Terrence was the one to do it. So I guess there was kind of a knack of this is a missing element and this could be done. It was kind of an instinct that kicked in. So all of a sudden these rock bands had a platform. So it's kind of the same now with film. It's all in us. Okay. I understand the reason for branding. Like if you're really good at something, you're really good at it. But if you weren't to being known for horror and being known for horror and a slasher horror or whatever it, but we all have so much in us. Our life gives us enough to write in the genre that we want to write it is my personal. I just don't believe in limiting ourselves. It's coming more, it's coming. So with genre, I really started as a horror film because I love it and it was natural and who I was as a kid. And those stories I could just churn out in days. But as I became really good at writing and realized I was becoming really good at writing, I started doing the concepts for the horrors, meeting more people, giving them church to other groups, more and more full stimulants, and it started rising there from action to rom-coms. But again, I still gravitate towards the dark side of things, the dark side of nature themes that we don't normally talk about.
Yeah.
I was working with a group called Redneck Writers because I was terrified of pitching when I realized that a writer can't hide behind the camera on this half-hour flight.
So I don't know if that answers the question, but I never quite, I just thought, whatever it comes to me, comes to me. And it's just kind of me to build it and I know that you're not put too much thought into it.
Well, I think this is really important, especially for the IDX crowd that is seeing this. you have so many different ideas. And sometimes I feel like people feel that they have to conform or stay within what people know them for. And then they never find that new origin story. They never, and there's a lot of people who are like, everybody, just like you said, it's so much more than just what they might be known for if they're very well known for something. So I wanted to ask that because I just really do feel like there's a lot of people out there who are like, gosh, I've been having this idea in the back of my head for such a long time. And you actually are one of the few people who have done it. You've moved from these different things and you said, I have a chance to explore this. I'm going to do that. And I feel like some people are kind of scared to do that. So it's really great to hear why, or, what those things were that told you, hey, go for it.
And I'll tell you another, I did have a lot of people say, focus on horror. And my response was, how do you get around it? How do you get around it is a thing? But I'll come up with a new term. I'm going to be genre agnostic. And it worked. If you give somebody the life raft, that they know what to do with it.
So we've gone into now, I think, your, Bellum era. And can you just recap for us how you go from starting to write into the horror and working with all of these different stories and eventually getting these comics into now, and tell us how this all came about coming into Bellum from there.
So Bellum, I've been a serial entrepreneur since 19, since starting family management and then Emerge Entertainment. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I really jump in and try to make sure that what I put out is as good as it can be. And that was the same as when I was managing. I would try to make sure that I was actually adding as much as I could. So by the time I realized I was really good at writing, I started entering for petitions. And so there's a really cute story, I'll tell you. So I was looking online for this woman, Max Allen's. I love Max. She runs the Academy of Film Writing. And I was looking at her thing. She had movers and shakers on her website. And I was looking for classes. I've always absorbed and loved to learn. So I've always absorbed as many online classes as possible. I've actually gone to 7 different schools. It was a joke with my husband. He was like, you're a perpetual student. I'm like, oh, no, I'm open to it. So I found her website and I was like, wow, wouldn't it be great to be one of Max's movers and shakers? I just have this innocent happiness when I would see it. And I would look at it all the time. And at the time I had written Taboo, which I'll show you.
Yeah, no.
There's
that art style is so clean. I really like that.
He's so cool. Love it. He's wonderful. So I had written Taboo, and I had written it as a podcast. I had written it as a TV series, and I had written it as a short script and entered it all over Austin. And it actually ended up placing in the, I thought, oh, it's beginner's luck, placed in Austin in the podcast side. And this was in the early days of podcasting. So that the podcast bug kind of bit me then, the narrative. So I started producing podcasts for all the TV series, right? So as soon as I won that and I take Max's class, all of a sudden I'm on her movers and shakers page, right? And it was just to this day, still makes me cry. Like I tear out the lip because it was such a odd, I never had that feeling earlier in my career because I got lucky. I didn't have to actually work for that. That's what I had to work for. Screenwriting I had to work for. I had to dive into a world I didn't know. As a mom, second career, all the things that would tell most people don't do it. You're older, you're a woman, you don't even know how to write. I didn't let any of those things take hold. I just saw this movers and shakers. I saw Max Adams' face. I saw Austin Film Festival. And I'm like, Austin for me has become a very special, it's almost like my own goalpost every year. So I placed that year. I'm like, next year I got to win, or I got to get 2 in. I got 2 in. The next year I had 9 in. And so it just kept going like that. Now I don't enter things anymore because I've moved on to a different part of my career. But those early days, that was pretty significant for me. So
That's
I have this
awesome.
heart for
I
us.
mean, that validation too. You put your neck out, and it was validated. Now I can't think of too many things that are greater than that. But it has to be scary. Did you just say, okay, I'm just putting that to the side? Doesn't matter if it's scary or not. Let's try it out.
I loved the screenwriting bug hit me and fit so well for all the reasons, OCD, everything. It just fit like a glove, and it just felt so good. And it was, wow, I can be the creator and manage myself. This is good. I don't have to deal with it. So I put it all aside. So that is how Vellum happened. I sat down and I thought, I've got to do something with the checks that are coming in. I've spent an enormous amount on classes. So doing an LLC was just, it had to be done. So I sat down and did a series of questions with myself because I believe in affirmation. Like, build it and they will come was my thought. So I sat and I made a Facebook page and did all of these things that I suggest everybody do starting out. Treat yourself as if you've already made it. Ask yourself those questions. Who do you want to be? So I did an interview with myself on writing, what my inspirations were. The universe conspires with you, I think. When I look back, it's like, well, what if I hadn't done that? What if I hadn't had the nerve to do that and to put it out there and like, I don't know. Yeah. So that was the origin of Vellum. And now Vellum has gone through a lot of transitions. I've gone through a lot of transitions. I realized pretty quickly that being a screenwriter wasn't enough. You have to really learn film and become a director. So I had to learn all that. I had to learn lighting, had to learn cinematography. I had to learn all of that. So I started making short films for all of the features. At the time, I had 7 features. And so I was doing one by one short film. Just pick up your iPhone and do it. That's the other thing. Don't have excuses where you have to have everything perfect. Just go make your film. I think my first short film was $2,500. That's because I did pay for a sound. I had to come. I did pay to have it edited right and whatnot. It won 38 festivals. My very first short film. So the beauty of just getting up and not overthinking it, just get out and do it. There's plenty of information online to tell you how to film a vertical or whatever it is. From there, I'll do podcasts because the script had already placed in multiple places. So I started doing podcasts for all the TV series. That was before doing the comics. So particularly for Hates, which taps my passion is the Garici, obviously, and the stories that just haven't been told. They're not really my stories to tell. It's probably my best writing and the best scripts and features and whatnot, but I just sit on them. They're kind of put aside.
Wow. I mean,
hopefully I'll be able to shed some light.
You started with basically these scripts. They've turned into movies. You're going back and forth between these two, and you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna film it. We'll edit it and everything like that. You're getting this recognition. Like, did anybody tell you, oh, you can't do that?
No, because I was sitting in New York in my, with my kids. I started going to Austin and to LA and just got really lucky with the people I met again. Joey Tuccio at Reinvented Writers. I owe this man like so much. He taught me to not be afraid to pitch. He introduced me to more executives than, if it hadn't been for Joey, I don't know that I would be doing exactly what I'm doing the way I'm doing it. But I met some very incredible people through him that have really mentored and have been there. If I do a script, I don't just count on my own assessment of it. I send it out to at least 5, 6 different executives in the industry that I know are going to give me vastly different things. Because I used to be the person, if I was going to know, I would change it all. I'm not precious about any of this. I'm a collaborator at heart and don't think my way is the right way. 1,000 ways to tell a story. So I was the person who would get stuck perpetually forever perfecting a script because I would try to fit everybody's note in until you're left with, you don't even know what that is anymore. And
yes.
then I realized about a year after, this process, I get a note on a script, and it was actually Hates, one of the RPG scripts. I get a note saying, why don't we do this, this, and this? And I'm like, that was the original script. So you realize that sometimes your first mind is right, and fight for it. Don't be, take the note, listen, but don't just make the changes because somebody who's got much more of a track record than you tells you that you have to do that. It has to really resonate and fit.
That's a really good point. It's so important, everyone. Your North Star is there for a reason, and it's always good to take in advice, but just remember it in the vein of your North Star. It's very, very important. So I'm glad you said that.
It's true. And I have writer friends that really the notes they take to heart, and it can really derail them. Don't be derailed. Not everything we write's going to be beautiful. But sometimes it is beautiful and somebody just doesn't see it. So it really is follow your own, like you said, your own resorts. That's what you're doing this for.
From the way that you set up who you talk to about for funding all the way to collaborations. Would you like to expand on that as number one? And then number two, there's a really great story about mentorship that, and not even just mentorship, but just giving people chances and guiding people through these processes that I would really like to make sure that people hear. And let's tackle the first one for those that are from the IDX side of things who are looking to figure out cool and inventive ways to attract investors from the exchange, but also to just kind of think outside of the box and how they get their projects made and produced and that, like, what are some of the things that you've found that have been pretty good and successful for you?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, and it adds to the origin of Bellum too. Bellum has transitioned into more of a collaborative. Don't be afraid to share your work because it takes a village to get a film done. And that really does spur thought, and it really does help viewpoints and to think outside the box. Because we've also incorporated Nine Armadillos, which is a TV series writer's room, but we don't just, and we focus on what, but we also have brainstorm sessions where it's like, with each other's projects, what more can you do? And some interesting things come out of that. So one of the things that Monetize and I do is, it's with financing particularly, film is probably the worst thing you can get somebody put money in besides a restaurant, right?
Uh-huh.
And the reason not as bad as a restaurant is you can sell your kitchen. Like if you've got a restaurant, you can sell the stove. There's something there that's tangible. And I thought, you can't sell. If you can't, what can you add to a script in a project other than tossing it out into the world, into the festival, proving it's viable, like if it wins some festivals or what? You could buy the location. Instead of renting the location, buy a cheap location and write to scope. But I wouldn't suggest everybody do that to, like I said, know the rules, then you can break them. I've been writing a really long time. So to write to scope makes sense. I wouldn't tell people, I'm going to give conflicting advice here. Write what you feel. Write your story. Get it out. Don't worry about budgets. Don't worry about financing. Don't worry about if you're going to sell it. But at some point, you can actually make your box. You know what you're writing, and you can write to scale, and you do know what the budget's going to be, but you learn those things over time. So it depends where you are in your career. If I need to write a $250,000 drama, I can do that with a single location, but you use what you have. So that was one thing we did, was we started putting together a portfolio of these really inexpensive properties that could be attached to a film. So if this takes or whatever, there's a property that can be sold. And that comes kind of enticing for investors. And we started thinking outside the box in ways of getting our films funded. What's going on with the WGA in Hollywood, you start an AI. It becomes harder and harder to get traditional Hollywood funding. So like I was saying earlier, I've had to learn to wear different hats and learn that you can't just be a screenwriter. You can't just be the filmmaker. So I transitioned to the producer role. And I hope I'm answering the question. stick them with a thinking like a box.
Yeah, sure.
I said for probably a good 3 years, I started meeting family offices, high net worth individuals. I realized that what I am first and foremost is a connector, and that's how I'm you. Right?
Yeah.
As a people pleaser, and it's helping. That's where my happiness has always come from, is being able to do for others. I mean, it just, the shoe was always fit. So through these connector circles, you meet some very interesting people, and you realize there's this entire world out there to get funding and to get your projects made, again, by collaborating and do them for others. Tell, don't want, by, just telling what you're doing. People are either interested or they're not. You're going to find your person. It's almost like in relationships, and I owe my partner this. This is attributed, this is his advice always. People spend a lot of time worrying about finding their significant other or dating, or are they going to like me? Focus on yourself and that person will come. Whether it's working out, whether it's your health, whatever it is, focus on you. They will come. The same thing applies here. Focus on your projects, focus on your art, focus on building your company, focus on whatever it is that you're passionate, and it will come. And throughout, there's been times in life, this is never going to happen. This is taking so long. It always works out. Like blink of an eye, it always works out.
Yeah, when you really align yourself with where you're in tune, everything else kind of falls into place, right? Like the people and the resources, all that, when you're really in tune and aligned with, because like you'll have a million people saying no or different ideas and stuff, but you'll feel it. You'll know when it's aligning because things will be moving. So that's really great. As far as you giving people opportunities or seeing that, how has that worked in your life? What was an experience that you had that was just that you were really happy with how it turned out in giving someone a chance?
I think that I've been really lucky. I've been blessed and very grateful for the chances I've been given. And it goes back, I guess, to Peter Conlon. I was this 17-year-old kid who walked in off the street, and he hired me, and I was the next thing on the concert promoter. And by the time I was 19, settling shows by myself. So he, I was this little girl who couldn't even type, and he would just laugh at me pecking away at the keyboard. But he saw something in me, and I was able to grow into that role. So that inspired me to always do that for other people as well. So one story that sticks out in my mind is my good friend Orlando Calzada, who still does all of our editing and mixing and does music for us. He's a Grammy Award-winning engineer. He came in one day, didn't know it at all, and it was a day that was really taxing for Tasha and I, my partner, what I'd mentioned. It was one of those days when somebody walks in that you normally no, brush them out with a broom. So Orlando walks in, with his wife, and he said, "Hey, pregnant? You work with my friend Carl. I've heard all about you. I think you're the person to help with my career." And I was like, "Who is this that?" And it was just, his wife was so adorable. So I'm listening, even though I really had a lot to do. And he said, "I'm a mix engineer. People don't give me chances because I'm from Puerto Rico. They wouldn't throw me on a Latin album. I could do that if I stayed home. I really came here to be on pop and really like it. Just really want to do the music. I'm really good." I was like, "Hold on just a second." So I went and talked to Tasha, and Tasha and I could talk to Jen. And we had a spot for him. So he was able to go in and track some vocals just off the street. So this goes back to not being afraid to just have the grit and the courage to kind of ask for things sometimes. I still don't ask, but ask for things sometimes. So Orlando went in, he tracked the song, everything was lovely, but it ended up being Survivor for Destiny's Child. So he got to go right into the studio with Beyonce. First time we worked together.
Oh my God.
A Grammy for that. Yeah, within 6 months, his life has changed. And from there, he went on to work with Corey Rooney and Lady Gaga. And, he's had quite the career as a mix engineer.
That's amazing. One of the biggest things I wanted to do was just make sure that people know what is going on with Bellum. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about that you have coming up, future projects or things that you're interested in?
Sure. I'll start with giving back, because that's where my heart always is. Bellum sponsors several fellowships. We have one with Stowe Story Labs. I did all of Stowe's labs when I was learning, and went to one of their labs in Ireland, and it was just so magical. The retreats they do are just so incredible, and I really have to get this done. So applications are open for that now. So anybody who wants to go into Story Labs, you can pick and choose what you want to apply for. Stowe narrows it down for me, and then they send me the finalist, and then we get our fellowship too. And I do another one for Sin Story. Sin Story is for women 40 and older. Stowe is for anyone, because storytellers truly can come from anywhere. But I do like to support uncut courses, diverse courses. So some of our fellowships are very specific to mentor people who might have a harder chance of getting into some of the competitions. So there's that. And Bellum, I guess what I'm really interested in right now, what we're really trying to accomplish is we're looking for collaborations. So we have several mediums set up where we try to mentor and help other people. So like I said, we're pretty prolific. We have quite a few ideas. Can't get to all of them. I can't physically write all the ideas that come. So through our mentorships, we can actually give people writer credits and things like that, and give people a chance to be a part of something bigger. So there's that. And so Bellum has diversified in a few ways. One, I realized I had all of these equity resources, but we don't have that track record yet in terms of we haven't had a blockbuster yet. So there were all these producer friends of mine that have A-list projects. We have a friend that is working on a documentary with Woody Harrelson. So I was able to connect Michelle with some resources and whatnot, and so help further that project. So we're doing that with a few different projects with A-listers. And it's all altruistic. There's nothing in it for Bellum except for being able to tie good people together. So we love to give back. So those are the ways in which we're trying to help other people as well as ourselves. We have a horror that's coming out hopefully in 2026. It's in development radar right now. Ted Field. A project we're really excited about is 18 Delta.
That's fantastic. I mean, I really applaud you for everything that you're doing with Bellum and just the history of everything that you've done, the opportunities that you've had and that you've given. And it's just really great to hear your story. So we're really hoping to see you in different ways on IDX and in different projects. We're just really excited to see what comes with that. I wanted to remind everyone, again, this is the Origins Club, IDX Origins Club. It's sponsored by Ideal Exchange or IDX. And IDX is a place where you can put up projects and share revenue streams in projects and properties that you own and trade those as shares for other people or to invest in you and then get something back. So it works just like regular stock market or starter or any of those types of things, but the fans are profiting along with you growing. So thank you for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give comments. I'm sure that Tonia and I would love to hear questions or comments that you have on Bellum, things that we've said here. And who knows, might even be able to respond back with you. And don't forget to join on our Discord where you might sometime see Tonia. You'll definitely see me and other people from the exchange around. So thank you for that. Tonia, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Origins Club.